So last time we went over the article discussing essentially why the Commonwealth cannot replace Europe, particularly the EU, after Brexit. Look, the Commonwealth is just an absolute joke. And one of the big things is, and why, is because is what I've been talking about probably since the beginning I started making these videos. There is this myth of British exceptionalism, and one of these big things is that the Empire was this amazing thing, and that's what we need to get back to, and the Commonwealth is a way we can get back to that. That is just an absolute economic fantasy, completely. And we have yet another article in the New Statesman basically saying the exact same thing. So, the Commonwealth delusion, why Empire 2.0 is no substitute for the EU. So, for decades, the Commonwealth was regarded as an antiquated relic. Unlike the EU and NATO, the association of 53 countries, almost all former British colonies, is neither an economic nor military superpower. It has no supranational authority. Most politicians privately describe it as mere talking shop, and when UKIP's 2010 manifesto proposed a Commonwealth free trade area, it was viewed as a mark of the party's outmodedness. But as Commonwealth leaders assemble in London, for the first time the UK has hosted the summit in 20 years, so by the time this video comes out, this will have happened this week, and I guarantee you, look, we covered this last time, this is nothing but shop talk. It comes up, this idea of we should re-engage with the Commonwealth and all this stuff comes up every so often, and then it just disappears again because the politicians realise it's just not going to work. And as was said last time, and as I will constantly say now, because people think it is, but it's not, the Commonwealth is not an economic trading bloc like the EU is. So, they are being touted as a route to Britain's economic salvation, because as we already know, and there is another paper that's come out basically saying how bad we are going to be leaving the EU, by the way. We'll cover that next, so don't worry about that. So, as the UK prepares to leave the EU, Brexiteers such as the International Trade Secretary, Liam Fox and Boris Johnson are hailing the club as an alternative source of prosperity. Fox's officials have nicknamed the vision Empire 2.0. This is another thing I want to get at, because in the UK we have this idea that again, as I said at the beginning, that this empire was this really good thing, and that there's this really bizarre nostalgia we have for it. Other countries do not think that way. You know, the idea that we are just going to relaunch Empire 2.0 and all our former colonies are going to be like, hooray, the motherland has come back to reclaim its former glory. That is not going to be the case. Not at all. You think India is going to do that, considering their history of the empire? Yeah, don't think so. So, and in 2013, Boris Johnson declared that the UK betrayed countries such as Australia and New Zealand when it joined the European Economic Community. And as Nick Pearce said, as Nick Pearce and Michael Kenny chart in their new book, Shadows of Empire, the Foreign Secretary and others have long fantasized of a re-energized Anglosphere that trumps Brussels. This is not going to happen. Particularly as it's been brought up before in this context, Boris and a lot of these Brexiteers are banking on really decades, years old nostalgia. The idea that you can revive the empire is complete fantasy in any shape or form. The Commonwealth just happens to be a club of countries that every so often group together and, they organise a Commonwealth Games. Other than that, that is the only thing that the Commonwealth has actually managed to achieve, which is not a lot. So, levers point to the Commonwealth's global reach. It encompasses a third of the world's people, a fifth of its landmass, and around 15% of its wealth. But Brexiteers are less keen to note how economically marginal it is to the UK. And we've talked about this before. Distance matters still in this world. It may not seem like it, but in trade, distance matters. And you always want to trade with your closest countries. This has been economics 101 from the very start. Trading with someone far off, you might gain some advantages, but there is always a cost involved. And the distance between the two countries tends to be what makes the overwhelming cost. So while the EU accounts for 48% of British exports, the Commonwealth represents just 9.5%. And this share of this trade will be falling because, like all the other countries that trade with us, they viewed the UK as a gateway to the EU and the single market. We are no longer going to be in that position. So, in the field of trade, geography matters more than history. What did I just say? Global companies' headquarters in Britain may view it as a gateway to the EU's lucrative single market. Again, what did I just say? The Tories contend, not unreasonably, that the UK could trade far more with the Commonwealth. Not least its economic powerhouse, India, whose GDP will soon overtake Britain's. But strengthening relations will not be as simplistic as they suggest. Many former colonies view the UK with ambivalence, warning it will not treat the summit as an imperial bazaar. Now, most of this didn't go reported, but when Theresa May went to India, the UK's so the Indian politicians and the press ripped into her. Basically the thing is you want India's goods, but you don't want to take anything else. The feeling in India, as I said at the beginning, for the empire is not the way we view it. So, as if to validate such concerns, Theresa May has outraged Commonwealth members and most everyone else by failing to meet with 12 Caribbean countries to discuss the threatened future of the Windrush immigrants. Number 10 has said the Prime Minister was not aware of the request and will now meet with them. But here's the thing, trade deals take years to negotiate and ratify. As Brexiteers rarely note, involve give and take. This is the reality of trade deals. And the big thing about Brexiteers is they can't accept that all this stuff we get from the EU, we have to have this give and take relationship. You cannot just say, we want that stuff, you're not getting any other access or anything like that. This is the reality of modern trade. And, a lot of people seem to think that isn't the case, but it is. This is the reality of modern trade. So, for instance, we will make any agreement conditional on Britain accepting more of its citizens as immigrants. The Tories, who have vowed to reduce net migration to tens of thousands a year, will struggle to reconcile this with likely preferential access for EU workers on who the British economy disproportionately depends upon, by the way. So, the project of expanding trade with the Commonwealth is not an irrational or ignorable one, but the belief that it can compensate for frayed links with Europe is delusional. The government's own analysis suggests that the UK will lose between 2 to 8% of GDP from a hard Brexit. And that is a withdrawal from the customs union and single market. And while new trade deals with the US and others would add no more, and I keep on saying this, would add no more than 0.6%. So you're basically telling us that, let's say this hard Brexit happens, we lose 8% of our GDP, only to replace it with these amazing new trade deals that make up no more than 0.6%. And you're still telling me, Brexiteers, that leaving the EU is a good idea. So, and the article closes out with this, which sums up this entire position with the Commonwealth. So, that the Commonwealth is enjoying unprecedented attention is not a mark of British strength, but of weakness. And as I said recently in a video last week, we are putting ourselves at the mercy of larger powers. The idea, and for some reason people have gotten into their heads, the UK is just secretly this economic trading power, when that is not the reality. That is just not the reality. But people seem to persist in this, oh, this is what it was like. And, it was joining the EU that sent us down this wrong path. But if you look what was happening to the UK, it was known as the sick man of Europe. We had been losing on a decade-by-decade basis. After World War II, our GDP had been falling by 10% every decade. And when we joined the European Economic Area, that stopped. It stopped that free fall. So there is every single argument I have been presenting on this channel for people of comments. No one has ever disputed, by the way, any of the facts I have ever said. It has always been the most simple-minded, excuse, as if, oh, it'll be fine. No, it won't be fine. Every single expert basically says this doesn't want to happen. And by the way, if you're banking on the Commonwealth, and you think the Commonwealth is a good idea, every single Commonwealth country said this, that us leaving the single market was a bad idea. So that's the Commonwealth that you're banking on, by the way.